For many people who have served time, it is difficult to start over because their record prevents them from getting a job or renting an apartment. Hampden District Attorney Anthony Gulluni recently held a forum in conjunction with the Gandara Center to explain the expungement hearing and record sealing process to service providers who do substance abuse and recovery counseling. I sat down with the DA to find out more.
So my office, the Hampden District Attorney's Office, arranged this with the Gandara Center in Holyoke, and it was for their employees. About 80 of their employees were there to learn about record sealing and record expungement. And it was really sort of a train-the-trainer situation where these folks who work as social workers in many cases and have clients who are turning their lives around or in recovery and need some help. This was really, I think, a very appropriate training. It was very well received at Gandara, and they were our partner, and I think it was a really effective training.
So when you talk about, people who are trying to turn their lives around and they might have had a drug offense, obviously they can't go out and get a job if they have this criminal record. This becomes a really big issue for families, especially who are trying to start over, I would assume, yes?
Absolutely, and that's what I said to the audience at Gandara was listen, you folks are working with people who are trying to turn their lives around, have had issues, whether it's with substance use or it's mental health or whatever it might be that have caused them some trouble. And very often that trouble translated into interaction with the criminal justice system. And I think the principles certainly of this Commonwealth and of this country are, when you make a mistake, you have an opportunity to turn that around. And you pay your debt to society, whether that was a probation sentence or whether it was a jail sentence or some other kind of punishment for a criminal offense. If you pay that debt, as the statute allows, you should be able to move on with your life. And as we all know, with educational opportunities for folks, whether it's for scholarships or federal financial aid, and certainly with jobs, a criminal conviction, especially a felony conviction, can really be a bar to taking advantage of those opportunities. So again, when folks turn their lives around, they're moving forward, they're looking to have gainful employment and provide for their families and be a tax-paying, law-abiding member of society, state statute allows for record sealing and record expungement in rare cases. Record sealing is much more common and much more accessible. This is a piece where they can move forward without that criminal conviction as really an encumbrance.
And so what is the process, for people? Because it might seem a little bit overwhelming as well.
It varies. So this is why we're training folks. I mean, I saw some statistics that was in a news article some time ago that showed the numbers for folks who are pursuing record sealing, and it was very low. So I think the principle around this idea was to get this out there. As district attorney and as prosecutors, we can't advise people ethically. We can't give people legal advice, but we can inform people about their statutory rights that are available to every member of the Commonwealth. And that's essentially what we're doing here. State statute allows folks who have misdemeanor convictions 3 years after the end of that sentence or the date of conviction, whichever is later, to move for record sealing or record expungement in 7 years for felonies. Some things are excluded, meaning sex crimes and other violent crimes are not available for sealing or expungement. But the vast majority of crimes, like marijuana convictions, especially now that we've legalized it, that's a big issue. And other minor offenses really are very available for folks to go and move the court in certain situations. So to answer your question, in district court offenses, they go before the court. In probation in particular, they have to start at probation. And with superior court offenses, more serious offenses, they have to go to the county's clerk's office in which that conviction entered.
So the judge will make that determination? Did they get before a judge and they say, okay, we're going to look at this guy, he's not so bad, he's done well, community service, we're going to seal this? That's
correct. And the DA's office typically has a position there, and very often we take no position to allow people to make their case in front of a judge, and a judge makes a decision. But state statute allows, after those period of years, for people to move forward with this, and very often the court is allowing that absent some circumstance or something that doesn't that violates the law and may be a certain offense that is excluded for record sealing.
So let's talk also about marijuana, because you had mentioned that's a huge issue now, I'm sure, for you. Would that also include trafficking or just use?
It certainly could. So marijuana trafficking is a felony, but again, with the statute, it's not excluded. So if the appropriate period of time were to expire and you move the court in an appropriate way, a judge would certainly allow somebody with a marijuana trafficking offense to seal his or her record. So it depends on the kind of offense. It depends on the number of years that have passed. One who moves the court to seal or expunge a record cannot have other offenses after that. So meaning you have to be clean and clear for that period of time, either 3 or 7 years or more with the type of offense. So it's all laid out in a statute. The Massachusetts website, mass.gov, really does a nice job of laying it out for people to understand the process and start the process in the appropriate places. And what my office is doing is trying to educate people around what their rights are and making them aware of this possibility. So again, they can move forward with jobs and with education. And we're going to do a lot more of this.
Okay, why is this important to you?
I think it's important because it ultimately affects public safety. We think that people who, again, have paid their debt to society, have made mistakes and moved on from those mistakes, should be able to really move on again with educational and work opportunities. And we feel that people who do move on and do find good jobs or do get into an educational program are much less likely to commit crimes and to continue to make those same mistakes that maybe led them into court in the first place. It's really that second chance, third chance sometimes that the state allows for, that law allows for, that we think is very important to giving people opportunities and moving them away from lives of crime.
And what do you hear from members of law enforcement about this?
I think it's positive. I think many of the folks with whom I deal across law enforcement understand what the law is. This is the law. This is not something that the DA's office is necessarily doing affirmatively. We're educating people on what their rights are pursuant to the law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But many of the police and other law enforcement officials I deal with are level-headed, reasonable people, and everyone's made mistakes, and these mistakes are things that people deserve a right to move on from, and I think everybody understands that.
I think when you look at the national conversation about this too, and the movement really to give people that second chance, it seems to be that even people on both sides of the aisle are really looking at the value of that second chance of coming out and reforming your life. And I'm assuming for everybody who works in the prison system, that's what you want, right? You know, people go in, but you want them to come out different.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, here in Massachusetts, we've been doing criminal justice the right way for a long time, and criminal justice reform has happened in other states and federally, and we're understanding that incarceration for people with low-level offenses and nonviolent offenses isn't the right thing. So things like record sealing are really important, I think, to moving forward. Being more versatile and more understanding of the issues, especially around addiction here in this Commonwealth, in this country, is really important. And there's a distinction between violent crime and representing victims, which I certainly understand and work very hard for, and helping people who have made those mistakes and are ready to move on with their lives.